All right, welcome back to the Central Valley Buzz, everybody. I'm your host, Chuck Leonard. How you doing? All right. Hey, sitting here with me now, my good friend Michael Bogart for 21st Century Faith. What's going on, bud? How are you?
Really good. How are you, Chuck?
Good. What's happening in the Christian world?
Well, I can't say that I speak for the entire Christian world, but
what's happening in your Christian world?
Well, you know, we've often referred to this book of mine, the 45-minute Bible, and
I've been turning people onto it.
I know you have.
I've been turning people onto it that are really religious. I haven't tried to give it to the non-believer. I've been giving it to the believers, and they really appreciate it.
Well, you would think so. If they're interested in the Bible, they would maybe be interested in this quick overview. But one of the issues that always comes up, and of course, as you know, I teach college and so on as well, is whether the Bible manuscripts are reliable. I know it's kind of a technical subject, but I wanted to discuss that a bit today.
What do you mean reliable? Do you mean believable?
No,
Real?
I mean, you know, you open up our English Bible today, and some people say, well, but we don't know if it's really based on the original thing that was written way back when.
Oh.
So we're talking about, in other words,
so the story's been changed, maybe.
That's what people claim.
Changed to suit the people that are making the new book?
Well, that's what the claim is. The contention is that early Christians fiddled with the manuscripts, or later Christians have done that, which actually all of that is complete nonsense. I mean, you can criticize Christianity for lots of different things, but the manuscript evidence for the Bible is actually quite strong, and I wanted to talk about that just a little bit today.
Talk about it.
Okay, so actually I took the trouble of giving some pictures to Bill.
Oh, took the trouble.
And so Bill's going to flash those up. I mean, so for example, let's talk about what manuscripts the Bible is actually, you know, based upon. In the Old Testament, let's see if we got that from Bill. The Old Testament manuscript is based mainly on Hebrew. There are some...
That's Hebrew letters.
That is a Hebrew text of the Old Testament, yes. Although the latter portions of the Old Testament are based upon another different language, but most of it's Hebrew. I took a little Hebrew in my training and basically got through it. Won't say I'm an expert. And then, of course, the New Testament is based upon the Greek manuscript of the New Testament. I did take...
Did you purposely get one with the worn corners?
Well, because that's an actual manuscript.
Oh.
You know, over time, after hundreds and hundreds of years, the manuscripts deteriorate a little bit. But what I wanted to say about that was that we have excellent integrity of the manuscripts because there's so many of them. At least 5,000 manuscript portions is what our New Testament text is based upon. So
where are they kept at?
Well, monasteries, museums. I mean, they dig some up in Egypt. It's fairly regular because what happened was that sometimes people would take worn out New Testament manuscripts in Greek and they would put them in tombs. So when they excavate Egyptian tombs, up comes all sorts of, you know, papyrus things, including some New Testament manuscripts.
Wow.
And so, you know, the fact that there are 5,000 manuscripts is what our New Testament text is based upon is unheard of in terms of ancient books. I mean, anything else ancient, you know, whether it's Virgil or whether it's Ovid or whether it's Tacitus or, you know, any of those other ancient authors, you know, they may have 3 or 4 or 5 manuscripts those are based on. New Testament's got 5,000. So, I mean, the whole idea that we don't know what the original text of the manuscript said is just kind of out there.
How do we know that it hasn't been changed? Why are you so certain that it has been changed?
Because you can take a manuscript from Egypt and a manuscript from some other part of the world, compare compare the text of those manuscripts.
Aren't they talking over time? It gets changed?
Well, certainly, but we have
So the stories change a little bit? You know, I had a grandfather.
Well, that's true. But in terms of the New Testament, we have very, very early manuscripts. And what we don't have in terms of...
And they're the same? If you translated them, they'd be the same to today's Bible?
Well, translation is another issue I want to talk about next week. Translation is a completely separate issue. But in terms of actual manuscripts of just, say, for example, the Hebrew Old Testament or the Greek New Testament, we have so many copies we can compare to where, you know, we pretty have good high confidence in terms of what the original actually said. So, I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of beyond any question at this point. Now, the Old Testament used to be criticized because there weren't as many manuscripts of that, but with the discovery of the Dead Sea... Well, yeah. The Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 kind of put an end to that argument as well because they're very, very early. They predate Jesus. And so...
do you go over any of that in the 45-minute Bible?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Chuck,
Just
because
a little segue,
yes, I
Mike.
do. I do explain a lot of it in better detail in the 45-minute Bible. Really, any major issue to do with the Bible, I basically touch on in terms of an overview in this book. I'm not a deep scholar. What I do in the book is I give a popularly oriented overview of the book.
You sell a lot of these books, Mike. Tell me what you've heard back from people that have read it.
I've heard that, well, for example, most of the time, you go to church, so you get bits and pieces in your church experience. I mean, you might spend some time in the Gospel of John, or you might spend some time in Psalms. But what people tell me after reading the book is that the whole thing kind of comes into perspective. It sort of ties all the bits and pieces together.
You have an aha moment? Is that what you're looking for after reading this?
I think that people will say, oh, so that's how this is connected to that, and that's where this came from. Most of the time in church you don't get that because that's not the purpose of what sermons are aimed at.
Is this something a family could read together?
Yeah, I think so. You could. Mm-hmm.
How old would your kids have to be to?
Well, I think this is really written maybe junior high and above, something like that.
You're selling a lot of these books, but you have a lot of other books too.
Yes, I do, Chuck. Probably my bestseller of all time is Understanding Islam.
That's the best. I thought this would be the bestseller.
No, well, it's because I haven't done a good job marketing this. That's why.
Understanding Islam, just because people are Googling that on the internet and finding it.
Well, on Amazon, if you type in Understanding Islam, my books and videos come up on page 6 of Amazon. And I still sell a whole bunch of them.
That's pretty deep.
It's pretty deep because people are really fascinated by the subject, maybe scared about the subject.
Right.
So that, I've got one on Mormonism, one on Jehovah's Witnesses, one on the New Age as well. And all of them do fairly well, I would say.
I tell the people that are watching where they can find it.
Okay, go to mindcuisine.com and look under the products page, or you can go to my ministry site, which is aspectministries.com, go to the products page, and you can find it there too.
All right, this is my good bud, Michael Bogart. He's here with me every Wednesday. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.